welcome to 216, a link to the Past Randomizer podcast. I am your host, Dear Agent. Welcome to season number 4. It's been a few months since our last episode. Excited to be back here. Today on the show, we've got Spleebie. Really great conversation with Spleebie and Mrs. Spleebie, so that was a lot of fun. We'll get to that shortly. So it's been a little over 4 months since our last episode. What's been going on in the rando community? So for me, my competitive rando days are done. In the past, I'll get to that more specifically later, but I don't know if we recapped it at all on the show. My team lost in the semifinals of the league to the eventual champs, GGW, Telethar, and Hitsu. OK dudes. I was trying to remember their names. They were the OK dudes. I played against Hitsu. I ended up dying to blind. It was an Inversia seed, I think is inverted. And maybe Inversia. I can't remember what, some sort of inverted. I died to blind and felt really bad after that. And so I played super aggressive and I skipped so much stuff. And one of those skips bit me. It was in Eastern Palace. I skipped the big key chest that had the hook shot, which unlocked the rest of the seed. Of all the skips I made, that was the dumbest one. And it ended up costing me that race. Because Hitsu died to Aga 1. Like he died at the top of Aga Tower and had to reclimb. He died to Aga 1. I couldn't believe it when I went back and watched. And then played super conservatively. Was able to pull out the victory. I ended up last location, that hook shot that I skipped. That was a little frustrating. That was my last race. And then Gamachu lost to GGW twice. GGW is a great runner, don't get me wrong, but I did not expect that. I think he needed to win 1 against GGW to get us to game 5. And that felt pretty comfortable if we went to a game 5 with me and Ramond. But we didn't get there. And I was pretty shocked that Gamma lost to GGW twice. Both seeds because of Bumper Ledge, which was pretty funny. But big congrats to GGW, Telethar, and Hitsu for winning the league. The main tournament is starting up soon. Qualifiers are going on now. Async qualifiers. I know they're doing, I think, 5 live races. It feels different with the async qualifiers. The same excitement that the main tournament brought isn't here. Maybe it will be when they announce the 128 or however many people make it into the tournament. But the qualifiers usually brought everyone out of the woodwork. Like names that you hadn't seen for years would come and try to qualify, and usually qualified for the main tournament. It just brought everyone out. There was like a palpable excitement when the qualifier started for the main tournament. The asyncs changed that a bit. Maybe people will still turn out and the excitement will be there. Maybe the flurry of messages and the excitement will be there more when the tournament starts now as opposed to the qualifiers. It just feels different. I think the asyncs are a really interesting compromise to what people have complained about in the past. It's definitely different than what they've done. Different is always scary. So we'll see how it goes, and then we can make the real assessment from there. The not knowing of where everyone is in the qualifiers shakes it up quite a bit. Like one of the most fun parts about doing the qualifiers was looking at those like prediction sheets and seeing where everyone lined up, knowing like where you're at compared to everyone else. No other tournament really had that. And so that's missing because I don't think they announce anything until all of the qualifiers are done. So you have no idea how you're doing compared to everyone else. Again, it's different. So it's hard to say if it's better or worse yet. We'll have to see how it all turns out to really get a feel for it. But right now it's just different. And so it feels like a little bit to do. Like, again, there's so many names that would come out for the main tournament that you wouldn't see racing regularly. And they still might be coming out, but we don't know until the tournament starts. So it'll be exciting to see how everything wraps up with the asyncs. So what would I do if I was in charge of the main tournament? I'd probably get rid of the qualifiers altogether and just run a Swiss. Like I know there's fear from the 512 days, which are so long ago, about running a Swiss tournament. But I think Cross Keys has done a really good job of showing how well a Swiss tournament can be run. I think Swiss would be good. Or, since there's so many tournaments now, you've got League, you've got Cross Keys, you've got Cas Boots, you've got that Casual Boots, was it 80 Keys? spoiler. I mean, there's just so many different tournaments now. I'm sure I'm missing some. I think it'd be kind of neat to give the winners of those tournaments automatic invites, and even like the past winner of the main tournament, automatic invites. It kind of gives a sense that the other tournaments are building up to the main tournament. Like you won this tournament, you won the league, so you get an invite to the big tournament, the main tournament. Kind of like with March Madness, right? And so March Madness, you have the big NCAA tournament in March, but you have like conference championships earning spots into that main tournament. I think it'd be interesting to do that, to kind of make it feel like you're building something, to give a sense of like the main tournament is the top. Right now, I'm not sure there's anything that really separates the main tournament from any of the other tournaments other than being called the main tournament. I don't know. Just a couple of different ideas. I mean, they know what they're doing. Regardless, it'll be an interesting year, and I'm curious to see how the turnout is and how well it's run. So what about the old Fear Agent? Am I really done? Are my competitive days really over? If you've listened to 216, you know how open I am with my struggles, with whatever. Like I'm just an open book. I'm not afraid of sharing about my journey, really. And 216 is kind of always about making things a bit more personal. And so for other people to be personal, I feel like I have to be as well. Just kind of who I am. So am I really done? Well, the short answer is yes. The longer answer is a bit more complex. So I had a realization, gosh, this is literally just a couple of weeks ago, that I talked about in counseling, and it was kind of like a revelation for me. If you get to know me, I am the type of person that is very passionate, and I pour myself 100% into whatever it is that I do. I'm also a very competitive person. Like, competition just drives me, and I want to be the best. But what I've learned is that I have a very unhealthy relationship with competition. It's almost a drug. I kind of compare my situation to being like an alcoholic. So what has happened, and I recognize this because of the pattern that I've created. So within the last, I want to say, let's say 15 years, I would pour myself into a form of competition. The first one that I can really think of within the last 15 years is Magic the Gathering. Really got into Magic the Gathering, had a lot of fun at first. Wasn't very good. I played a little bit when I was in high school and in my early 20s. But then my friend and I kind of rediscovered it, and we started going to FNMs. This is around the time of Scars of Mirrodin, which is a long time ago now. And at that point, it was a lot of fun. It was brand new. The game was fresh for us, and I was still learning. And when I'm in that like spot, I can learn and I can absorb and I can pour myself into it. And then I started to get more and more competitive, right? Like as I learned and got better and I'm winning like FNMs and I'm starting to be like more consistently good, things start to turn where it's no longer about winning. It's more about not losing. And I take it personal. Like the losses were way harder than the wins were good, if that makes any sense. Like the losses outweighed the wins by a lot. And Magic the Gathering is super competitive when you get into like, at the time was like Grand Prix and the Pro Tours and stuff. And I never really got to that spot, did some PTQs and things, but I'd always put my self-worth into the losses more so than if I had won. So I'd lose and I'd feel really shitty about myself, which speaks a lot to why tilt has been such a like important topic of conversation on 216 as well. So what would happen is I would pour myself into it. When I moved over to where I am now, I started a thing called Yakima MTG, which you could look up on YouTube about 8 years ago. And I would record Friday Night Magics, and me and my friend would do commentary over them. And like I said, I poured myself, my time, my effort, and my money into the things and the hobbies that I really enjoyed. But then they got really competitive. And again, I took the competition in the wrong way, not on purpose. It's just who I was. It's just who I am. And so I'd feel the losses a lot. I could tell you way more about the losses than I could ever tell you about the times that I've won. So what would happen is I would then start feeling really bad about myself, struggle with depression, because I'd get to the point where I'm playing with people that are better than me, especially with Magic. I'd begin to blame the game for why I was feeling the way I was. the metagame sucks. I don't like the way WotC is handling business practices. I don't like the way that they're selling. I would just come up with every reason and blame the game. And then I would stop. So then I would just cut off playing Magic the Gathering. And what I didn't realize I was doing is then I would find a new outlet for that competition, which was next Link to the Past Randomizer. And again, I poured myself into Link to the Past Randomizer, created the league, did everything that I could to get better, bought all the different hardware that was required to quote unquote be more competitive, spent a lot of money, started a podcast, did everything I could to be as competitive as I could in ALTDPR. Got pretty good. When you get really good and you don't win as consistently because the community is getting just as good as you are, you find reasons not to like the game. You find reasons why the losing sucks. And when I first started Link to the Past Randomizer, one of the things I loved is that you could beat better players, right? Like that was something cool. It's like the wins were really high because you'd play against a big name and you'd beat them even though they were better than you. But when you get to that top level and you start losing, the highs for me, and again, this is all for me, the highs for me never met the lows of losing. But I didn't see the correlation between like Magic and Link to the Past in my life. And so when things got really hard and I'd lose and I'd get really pissed off at myself and I'd start to kind of like spiral down, I'm like, oh, I got to get away from it's the game. You know, the mode sucks, the placement sucks, the whatever. I'd blame everything about the game. When in fact, Magic the Gathering, from what I can tell, is still pretty great. Link to the Past Randomizer is still awesome. It's still an awesome game. Just my perception of it. So the lows were always outweighing the highs by so much. And the low would always become so personal to me. And it hurt. And so I stopped playing Randomizer. And I started playing Marvel Snap. And it wasn't until this last go with Marvel Snap that I realized that I saw the pattern, that I made the connection, that it wasn't the game. It was my unhealthy relationship with competition because I got into Marvel Snap. It's a lot of fun, especially as you're beginning, but I put my time, I played a lot, I put my money in. I got to the point where I had like almost all of the cards, everything but a couple of like Series 5 cards, and the competition got harder and I couldn't keep up. And the lows of losing became too frustrating and became personal. And I had to stop playing Marvel Snap because of the relationship with competition that I had or that I have. So earlier I mentioned the comparison to alcoholism, and that's kind of what my relationship to competition is. I can't have a little bit. Like an alcoholic can't drink a little bit because the alcohol has a control over them, whether they like it or not, whether they enjoy it or not. They can't control it. So a little bit doesn't work. So for me, I realized that competition was my drug. Feels really good at first. That first hit you take feels really good. But the lows eventually outweigh the highs by a lot. So it wasn't Magic the Gathering. It wasn't Link to the Past Randomizer. It was Marvel Snap. Despite not being crazy about like the Marvel Snap metagame or whatever, finding every excuse as to why I didn't like it at that certain point, or is feeling that way when I lose. Those games are all great. It wasn't the games. It was me. And so that's kind of where I'm at now. So now I have to sort of reframe everything. So can I play a Link to the Past Randomizer? Not really, because the way that I enjoyed Link to the Past Randomizer was through competition. Like, yes, you can play Link to the Past Randomizer without doing a race. You could play Magic the Gathering, not on a Pro Tour level, but like Commander with your friends. You can do Marvel Snap with your friends, right? Like there's ways of playing these games that eliminate the competition, but that is like almost like having a sip of alcohol as an alcoholic. I can't do it because it just drags me back into the spot that I want to go in. I love competition. I love it. But I have such an unhealthy relationship with it. That realization for me has unlocked so many doors into understanding who I am and how I can live life and be happy. It also allows me to appreciate stuff a little bit more. Like I can now look back a little bit more on Magic after I left and say, oh yeah, it's like the game is cool. And I can look at at Randomizer and like really take in how cool Randomizer is. I have a new appreciation for the games that I would throw under the bus because of the way I felt after losing. And so like I'm trying to go cold turkey basically with the competition aspect, and like I'm playing stuff where I don't have to be as competitive. I've been playing a lot of Animal Crossing New Horizon. It's been a lot of fun. Kind of rebuilt my island. So many of you might not understand that. Many of you might have a very healthy relationship with competition. Today's guest, Spleebie, we'll talk a little bit about this. The conversation happened before my realization, but that the idea that you can be competitive and it's not the world, you don't put your self-worth into the competition, makes me very jealous. So I'll talk a little bit about that with Spleebie. So what does that mean for the podcast? And what is my role in this community? I mean, I really enjoy recording 216. The hard part for me is usually I would be super invested and then I would just cut bait and leave and have nothing to do with it because I blamed the game or the community or whatever. So now I have a different perspective and I want to be a part of the community, just not be a part of the competition. So where I'm at with 216 is a bit of a crossroads. The show's hosting is up in the middle of May. I have until then to figure out the future. One thing I've never been good about is asking for help, basically in anything that I do, especially when it comes to people's time and money. And as much as I like being a part of the community, I'm just not sure how invested I can be in the community. But for the show to continue, basically what I would need is an engineer to edit the show and someone to pay for hosting. Like I've put too much time and money into it that I'm not really willing to put the same amount of time and money into it. But both things, an engineer and paying for the cost of hosting, aren't things that I'm comfortable asking help for. Never ask anyone to ever give me money for the show, ever. I've always felt guilty about people subbing to my Twitch channel, to be honest. I always wanted to try to get them something for subbing. You get emotes and stuff, but I did like the bonus episodes and things like that to try to like not incentivize people to sub, but to give them something tangible, at least, for giving me some money. So I just can't do it. I can't join a Patreon. I can't do that kind of stuff. It's not in my nature. So for now, the show's going to be ending with season 4. The hardest part about the show, honestly, isn't like the editing and the paying for it. It's choosing all the people to have on the show. There's so many people that I want to have on the show. So many people that I'm going to miss out talking to. Like season 1, I had mostly my friends. Season 2 and 3. And now 4, I've expanded to people that I have less of a relationship with. I really love hearing people's stories. And that's honestly the hardest part, is like choosing who do I have on the show, because time is so finite. Like I don't have enough time to talk to everyone, but there's so many people in the community that I'd love to hear from. So many new people in the community that I don't even know. So if you're looking for more interviews with people in the community, you can now listen to the Go Mode podcast, because they basically stole my entire show. Which is fine, because next week I stole their host. I kid when I say that they stole the show. Dante messaged me telling me that they were doing an interview show. I told him it was cool. I don't own the art of the interview. It's not something that I own. But I did listen to the first couple that he did. And my ego did have a bit of a stumble when I heard the shows, because it really felt like Dante was just doing my show on the Go Mode podcast. But for now, with 216 coming to close, hopefully the stuff that Dante's doing will hopefully fill a void. And to get him back, I have Timp on the show next week. So there's that. Sorry for the really long intro, but it's been a while. Today on the show, we've got Spleebie. We also have Mrs. Spleebie. That was really fun. This one was kind of a bitch. Not because of the guests, but we had so many tech issues on my side. The program that I normally use to record with everyone has just been fucked up and not working right. And so we had a lot of start and stops, and they were super patient with me. And you might notice some audio issues first like 45 minutes or something of the show, but hopefully we get it all sorted out. I wasn't on my A game, so I apologize to Spleebie and Mrs. Spleebie as well, because of all of tech issues, and it had been a while since I'd done an interview. So apologies to them for not giving them my best, but they were great. And I loved having them on the show. We recorded this a while back. So some of the things that we talk about, like Tears of the Kingdom and some of the main tournament stuff, have had more information come out since we recorded. Really excited for Tears of the Kingdom, by the way. Anyways, I've taken enough of your time. Let's get to the interview with Spleebie. All right, Spleebie, here we are back with 216 podcast, and having you as, I guess, the first guest of season 4. I haven't really figured out what season 4 is going to look like, but here we are. We're going to talk, and I'm really excited that you decided to join me, and you're not alone.
Yeah, welcome back, Fear. Thanks for having me on here. I do have my wife, who goes by Mrs. Spleebie, here with me.
Hello.
I'm so excited. This is like the first kind of 3-person podcast that I've done that I can think of unofficially, right? Like this is the Spleebie show, but Mrs. Spleebie's always with you. Like one of the best things about coming to your stream is a lot of the times Mrs. Spleebie is in the background chatting us all up. It's great.
Yeah, she tries to join every night. I mean, she has a lot on her plate, so sometimes by the end of the night she's too exhausted and ends up just napping while I'm streaming. But
sure,
often oftentimes she's here, cheering me on or whatever,
or giving you crap
watching
sometimes.
Rando. So
yeah, I like when she gives you crap
definitely.
too, for sure. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about your like gaming history.
I'm gonna say a lot. I'm gonna try and stop doing that. The temptation to say it again to start my next sentence. I was unbelievably large. It's ridiculous.
It up. I'll just say it up. It's okay. Bring all the ums. Yeah. We're good with it.
Okay. So gaming history. When man.
I'm not sure your age. Like if I was to guess, just seeing you on stream, you're probably like 10 years younger than me, but I honestly have no idea. When did you grow up, and what was your gaming? What were you first playing when you first started gaming?
Yeah. I'm 37. All right. So it's one of those things where if your parents tell you something that happened when you were little enough times, you start to like have it as a memory, right?
Yeah.
So apparently it's not, I don't remember this, but I remember the story. When I was really little, my dad got the NES when it came out, and he played Zelda on it. And I used to ask if I could sit in his lap while he played Zelda. And just loved, watching him play and then playing it myself. I don't really remember, when we got the SNES, as far as I'm concerned, we always had that. But so sure. I played NES and SNES growing up. Those were the.
But you have no actual memory of playing NES, the NES, when you were a kid. That's just all stuff that has been relayed to you. Like, oh yeah, we had an NES and you played with Dad and stuff.
Well, we kept it plugged in for a long time. So I do have actual memories of a lot of the games on it.
Sure. But it wasn't like the initial, when you first got it, it was always there sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't remember any excitement over like, oh, this video game thing just came out, or the Super Nintendo just came out and we're going to get, the upgraded 16-bit graphics or whatever. I was too young for that.
Sure.
I do remember when the N64 came out and getting one of those. But
okay, did you get one when it first came out, like with the launch with like Mario 64 and everything?
I think it was at. Geez, I don't know dates or anything, but I think it was probably the Christmas after it came out that we got it.
Oh, okay.
Because I remember going over to a friend's house to play Ocarina of Time because he had just gotten it, and I didn't actually get to play. I sat there and watched him play until it was so late. I rode my bike to this kid's house and watched him play Ocarina of Time. Didn't keep track of anything until my mom showed up at his house and was like, "It's like 9 o'clock. You're supposed to be home by now." Had to put my bike in the back of the van, and
yeah, and thus began your days of watching people playing video games, right? Like,
yeah.
In the future.
I mean, I had a lot of siblings, so we were always watching each other play games.
Right, because at most, when we were growing up, a lot of these games said they were 2-player, but it's mostly I play, then you play, right? Like Super Mario Brothers. If I'm playing, I die, then you get a turn. It's not like you get to play a lot of co-op or multiplayer. So it was a lot a lot more watching your siblings play video games back then.
Until you get to like Donkey Kong and something like that, where it's actually kind of together.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun playing as like Diddy Kong and stuff. So gaming was just a part of your family as far as you can remember then.
Oh yeah, like I said, my dad got the NES.
Was it a big deal
back then? It wasn't. I mean, a big deal. It was. I played a lot of video games as that was probably my main pastime. But there were times when, like my mom would be like, "No more Nintendo, go outside."
Sure. I remember those days for sure. Mrs. Spleebie, did you also grow up playing video games?
No, I have
Okay.
I have two older brothers who were very possessive, so I got to watch, but I didn't play.
Okay.
I got a Game Boy Micro when I was in college, and I learned how to play Tetris.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Oh yeah, I still have that thing in my drawer.
That's hilarious. I've not thought of the Game Boy Micro in a very long time. Was your family really a Nintendo family, or were you guys branching out to do like the Sega and the PlayStation when that came out?
We had mostly a Nintendo family. Well, okay. My dad was one of like so I said it a couple times. My dad got the NES. He never really like transitioned to playing Super Nintendo games. But he was like an early software developer, working for WordPerfect and Novell and some other big companies back in the day. So he actually got into PC gaming really early, and he would give us kids like an old computer to play games on or whatever. So I remember playing games on like MS-DOS and having to boot Windows from DOS in order to play other games.
Sure.
So we had the Nintendos and we had computers. Speaking of co-op, as we did earlier, I remember we had two kids' computers at one point, and I remember sitting next to my older brother, not Sky, but a different brother, and playing Wolfenstein 3D. Did you ever play that game?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember sitting next to my brother.
From a floppy disk?
Yeah. Sitting next to my brother each on our own computer. And we like played that game together, like telling each other where the secrets were and where like enemies to watch out for and stuff.
That's awesome.
That was a long time ago.
Yes, it was. Do you remember any of those other DOS games that you were playing?
Oh, not a lot. I mean,
Putt-Putt.
Wolfenstein. There was Putt-Putt. There was King's. We had a King's Quest game.
Yeah.
And we had a whole bunch, but
yeah.
There was like some really old flight sims. Oh, there was Star Wars X-Wing or TIE Fighter.
Oh, okay.
I think those are two separate games. We played the heck out of those on PC back in the day.
For sure. I have like these weird memories of like some really obscure games that were mostly text based, or you'd like move the character around with arrows, but then it was like it gave you options on what to do, like searching things. I can't remember what it was, but there was a couple of them. They're like super rudimentary, but I can't.
Kinda?
No, they're like detective sort of like puzzle games. But to say they had graphics would be an insult to most graphics. But it's mostly like text-based stuff. I can't even remember what it was, but I remember playing a lot of that early on. We were actually behind. Like everyone was playing what you were playing, and we were just playing like the even older stuff because our computer was so old at the time. But so it sounds like gaming was actually a pretty big part of your whole family then. Everyone's playing computer games and Nintendo games and just doing a whole lot of gaming.
Yeah, I guess not my mom or my sister, but but my brothers and me and my dad. He didn't play a lot of games with us. Like, I don't remember, but I've been told I sat on his lap and played Zelda. But I don't remember playing a lot of other games with my dad. Like, He was always busy at work, and whatever. But he always, like, I guess, enabled us to play our own games. So
right. Yeah, for sure. So where does Zelda kind of fall into all of this? Were you a big Zelda fan? Was Link to the Past a go-to for you, or were you into other stuff?
Oh yeah. But like, huge Zelda fan. What was the first Zelda game that I remember buying for myself was Majora's Mask. And I think since then I have bought every Zelda game, like the instant it came out, or pre-ordered it. Like I pre-ordered Wind Waker and got the Ocarina of Time bonus disc for GameCube that came with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Link to the Past was like, I remember playing it as a kid, and every so often I would like go back and play all the Zelda games, just to remember them. And I remember, okay. So at some point, I remember not needing to use the Game Genie in order to beat Vitreous anymore.
Yeah.
I used to have to pull out the Game Genie and turn it on to get infinite hearts, because when I was a kid, I had no concept of like dodging attacks. So, he spits the 9 eyeballs at you. I just stood there and swung my sword, which now I know you can swing fast enough that you'll be fine. But as a kid, I could push the button like twice a second, maybe. So yeah, I'm not needing the Game Genie anymore. That was a big moment.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome.
But yeah, I love playing Link to the
gaming
Past.
as a kid is so different back then because we didn't have the internet to show us or tell us how to do stuff. It was just figure it out yourself or talk to your buddies that were also playing the game and try to get some sort of information on how to do that stuff. I mean, I remember Link to the Past specifically being super hard to figure out because like the dig spot for the ocarina, it's like, how are you ever supposed to find that? Like, I remember just searching for it and digging everywhere and just like, where am I supposed to go? And then, talking to my bud who's like, oh, this is where you got to go dig to get the flute and stuff.
Yeah,
so
I think I probably dug every space on the screen to find that thing.
For sure. It's such an odd mechanic in the way that those old video games did not hold your hand at all. And again, there was no internet to like figure out, where do I do next? Or here's a 100% walkthrough on YouTube or whatever. Discord for you to go find all the answers.
Well, until there was GameFAQs, I guess.
Right. GameFAQs was a big one. I remember using GameFAQs a lot for sure.
And then being able to go to GameFAQs and then printing off all of the guides for whatever game.
Right. Yep. Yeah. I remember going to GameFAQs for sure, for learning like Street Fighter moves or Mortal Kombat moves, or like the fatalities in Mortal Kombat or whatever, because otherwise it's all guesswork from there.
I remember there was an old PC game called Secret of Monkey Island, and which is a great game. They recently remastered it and whatever, and I bought that, and it's a great game. I remember getting stuck on that game at a certain point and not having any way to get past it, like until finally I like talked to a friend of a friend, or like knew somebody that played it. One of my friends knew somebody that played it, and I was finally able to get a hint to get past. It was you have to get a key from LeChuck, if you know the game. When you're on his ship, you got to get the key, and there's not like, it doesn't really tell you how to do it. And this was before we had dial up, and I couldn't get on GameFAQs, and times were tough back then, I guess.
It was just a total different gaming landscape that I kind of miss. I kind of miss that the idea that you can't just look it up when you get stuck. I don't feel like I don't play a ton of games, but I feel like I don't have that same sort of experience that especially the old Nintendo stuff had, the NES and the Super Nintendo, where it's like you're just go figure it out. And there's a sense of like exploration. I think Breath of the Wild was close for me, but it's just still a little bit different. It's a little bit, that one holds your hand like the modern games do, I guess. But
yeah, unless the game actually came with the guide, you didn't get much info other than that.
Sure. You also mentioned pre-ordering stuff. I remember pre-ordering Ocarina of Time to get the gold cartridge at my local software, etc., which ended up becoming GameFAQs. Our game. What's GameStop?
GameStop.
GameStop. Yeah. So I remember way back in the day pre-ordering stuff for the Nintendo 64. And they try to sell you like the Prima or like the official like guidebook to get you through it and stuff as well.
Oh yeah,
which I'm sure.
Oh, and I bought so many. I have a whole shelf full of guides.
Oh, do you?
Some of those Prima guides, and then when they started coming out with these like special like Zelda collector's edition ones or whatever, I actually ended up collecting all of those. Two of them actually were only this year that I finally was able to finish that collection.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
I've got them on a shelf. Awesome. If you want to see, you can stop by sometime,
All right. So as you got older, where did your gaming go? Did you continue on with the Nintendo stuff? Did you go more into the PC stuff, or did you expand even out more to like PlayStation and Xbox stuff?
Yeah. So we had, because of Zelda mostly, we got every Nintendo system as it came out. We also were upgrading our PCs. As my dad would get some new, whatever, he tried to like stay on the newest computer stuff, and we always got the hand-me-downs. So, but that, other than that, Nintendo's and PC, we didn't really get into it. We had, I think a couple of my little brothers had a PlayStation at some point, and then my dad got a PS3 that was dedicated to only Blu-rays.
Okay.
For some reason.
All right.
Well, I don't know. It came with the TV they bought, and we weren't allowed to buy any games because my parents wanted to be able to watch movies on it whenever they wanted and not have us tying it up. But
that's funny.
So mostly just Nintendo and PC then.
Okay. And so you stuck with what, like the GameCube and then the Wii and then the Wii U and everything?
Yeah. So there was a Zelda collector's edition or whatever, GameCube, that came with a disc that had Zelda 1, Zelda 2, Ocarina of Time, and Majora's Mask on it. And I remember buying that and taking it to college with me. And with that, I also got the Game Boy Player, which is like a GBA attachment for the GameCube. And between that disc and the GBA version of Link to the Past, I could play all of the Zelda games that had been released at the time. And I thought that was amazing.
Yeah.
I think that was actually the first time
college.
Yeah. I think that was actually the first time I ever actually sat down and beat Zelda 2 was on that disc.
That's so funny. I literally just beat Zelda 2 for the first time this past year.
Oh, really? Because
as a kid, there was no way I was ever beating that game. There's zero chance I beat that game as a kid.
Yeah.
It was still hard. It's still super difficult.
Yeah, I remember wandering around in Zelda 2 and I think getting the candle, but I don't think I ever figured out the trophy to go get the spell or whatever. So I got the candle and I wandered around and never really got to the Palace 2 as a kid.
Yeah.
But, in
I
college,
just remember going into...
It was easier.
Yeah, for sure. I remember going to Death Mountain and there's like these guys with axe. I can't remember what they're called now, but
divers,
they're orange and red. Yeah, those guys are the worst, man. I had no idea. I was like, it just felt so unfair. I felt like I could never beat those. And then now I watch speedruns of it and it's like, wow, they really know how to defeat those things. No problem.
Yeah. And in the dark, even for some of the speedruns, like any percent.
Yeah, for sure. Did you ever get into speedrunning at all during all of this?
So I actually thought of this earlier. I didn't. That the answer is no. But I remember one time being over at my cousin's house, and they had an NES, and I was like, "Hey, I can beat Zelda 1 in a couple hours or something." And I remember sitting down and playing Zelda 1 and beating the entire thing in like one sitting. And it was so cool. Like my cousins, liked it or whatever. But
Sure.
No, that's really the only speedrunning I really did until getting into Rando.
Were you able to do that just because you played it so much? Is that what it was? You played a lot of Zelda 1?
I don't know.
Did you have like guides or anything, or is it just something that you came across by playing it as much as you did?
I had maps that my dad drew on graph paper of the dungeons.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Other than that, just playing it a bunch. I think when I was a kid, I played Zelda 1 more than Link to the Past, for sure.
Oh, okay. Sure. So let me ask you this. Where does Mrs. Spleebie come into all the picture? Is it during college or is it after college or?
Well, we met at college.
It was before you had a Wii, before you had a DS.
Yeah, we got the Wii after we were married.
Yeah, I know.
No, we met in the college marching band. We both played alto saxophone.
Awesome.
And we don't need to get into that whole story, but
yeah, I knew that my little brother had a PS2 and my little sister had a GameCube, and another one of my little sisters had a DS, and she really liked Zelda, and that was about all I knew.
So you weren't super into gaming then?
No.
I mean, she's still not super into gaming, other than
I like watching. I don't like playing.
Right. Okay. So you two meet in the marching band. That was what you said? You're playing alto sax.
Yeah.
Was it? I guess it's probably different in college, but was there like seats where like was Spleebie like seat 1 and Mrs. Spleebie was seat 2 and you guys were fighting over it? Yeah. Not really. I mean, we had like a section leader, I guess.
Well,
but that was pretty much it.
One of my friends in my section had a really big crush on him. So I learned everything about him, and I took him away from her. She wasn't mad.
Well, yeah, it worked out. It worked out pretty well, I would say.
Yeah, I'm glad. I like
it. Yeah, for sure. As your relationship grew, was there before you got into streaming, would you watch him play video games?
Oh yeah. Like even right after we got married and we lived in a stupid crappy apartment that it was very bad.
That's when we got the Wii.
And we still had a CRT TV, and he got some Game Boy thing. I don't remember. It was before the Wii, and you got the Game Boy thing so that you could play the Game Boy ones on the TV for me. Mm-hmm. And I sat and I watched him play through all of them, and then I supported his addiction.
All the Zelda games, you mean? Yeah. She let me get a computer, and I actually played World of Warcraft for about a year, I think.
I did not like that.
She hated it.
No.
Yeah, that doesn't seem as watchable to me.
Yeah, no. Yeah, she hated that. And I actually, when she got pregnant, we had twins. So we have 2 kids. They're twins, a boy and a girl. And when we had the twins, I said, okay, I'm going to stop playing World of Warcraft because it was taking all of my time. You know, I was neglecting my wife. And I knew that it was going to be a problem if I kept doing that. I wouldn't be able to help with the kids and whatever. So I did play it for a year, but that was it. And I haven't touched it since. Yeah.
I made a rule that if you can't pause a game, you can't play it after the twins came, because
that's a good
they were
rule.
very, very hard.
Yeah. Now I do speed runs where I can't do anything for an hour and a half, which she tolerates.
Sure. But they're older now, right? Yeah. It's different when they're a little bit older now.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got 3. None of them are twins, though we had them like, they're only a year difference between all 3 of our kids consecutively. And it's it's tough when they're young.
Wow. Yeah.
And you're outnumbered pretty quickly. But Mrs. Spleebie, do you have any games that Spleebie was playing that were your favorite to watch back then?
Well, I guess
she was going to say Breath of the Wild until you said back then.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, let's say I guess, this conversation.
Yeah. No, definitely Breath of the Wild is my favorite. I even watch it watch people play it who aren't Spleebie.
Yeah, like Player 5 and Bing's F and
Limcube.
That's the other guy.
Yeah. But I
Breath of the Wild streamers.
I did not like Majora's Mask. Those masks gave me nightmares. So he's only played it like once.
It's
our whole marriage.
It's funny because for a long time I said that Majora's Mask was my favorite Zelda game. I loved you get the Bomber's Notebook or whatever, and you get this checklist that you get to go do all these quests, and all the townspeople are happy when you solve their problem or whatever, and I loved it. But the creepy side of it, I guess it kind of went over my head. I was never really creeped out by any of it, but she certainly was. So I actually haven't played that game in a long time.
That's funny. When did you start getting into Twitch? As far as watching it, or even knowing it was a thing.
We should probably talk about that, not just talk about the old times. So I actually made some notes so that I wouldn't sound too dumb trying to remember things. Let's go back a little bit to 2016. I was playing PC games and I got super into The Binding of Isaac Rebirth. Which, if you've never played it, it's a twin stick shooter, kind of in a Zelda-like style. Like, the game is styled after Zelda 1 a little bit, but it's really fun.
It's gross.
It's also gross. There's blood and poop, and it's, a 13-year-old's game. But I got super into that in 2016, and I started watching Northern Lion on YouTube. And then I found out he had a Twitch thing that I didn't know what it was. Some Twitch live streaming thing. So I made a Twitch account and followed him and a bunch of other Isaac and other streamers that he interacted with or whatever. In 2016, which was after it was Twitch. It wasn't Justin TV anymore.
Okay.
So I kind of followed, watched some of that, and I didn't really use Twitch a lot over the next couple of years, I guess.
So what about YouTube?
YouTube, I mean, YouTube's been a thing forever.
I know, but were you watching gaming stuff on YouTube then?
Yeah, no, I got what you're asking. I didn't really watch a lot of Let's Plays, kind of, or YouTube gaming content, really.
He didn't have a lot of extra time. Our kids were really hard to take care of. So any free time he had, he was helping me.
Sure. This is in 2016. You're about 2015, 2016.
Yeah.
But he would play Binding of Isaac and I would watch football. And that was kind of our deal.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Football. I feel like we could talk about football all day long.
Yeah.
Go in the Discord. That's one of the main. I didn't even know. One of the main.
Oh, no, but then you'll find out that my favorite team is the Vikings and you'll just laugh at me.
I mean, it could be worse. I mean, could be a Lions fan, right?
There's.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Sure. That's awesome. So you have kids. Things are kind of hectic because, taking care of twins is a lot of work. And you discover Twitch through the Binding of Isaac. Was there other games that then you sort of discovered after that? Where did Rando kind of fall into place here?
Yeah. So I watched Isaac on Twitch. There was an XCOM streamer, I think, that I followed. XCOM Enemy Unknown. That's a great game, by the way. And there was a couple other games that I was into that I followed a couple Twitch streams, but I didn't really watch it a lot. And it wasn't until the race. Yeah, everyone knows the one I'm talking about, the Andy Christos race at GDQ. I wasn't really into watching GDQ or watching speedruns or whatever at the time, but my little brother, Darkened Sky, he got into Ocarina of Time speedrunning really early and was a big fan of GDQ and watching it or whatever. And he came to me and said, "Hey, I saw this thing on GDQ. You should check it out." I think he tied it to Isaac somehow. He's like, it's like Link to the Past, except roguelike or something. And that piqued my interest. I was like, "Ooh, it's like Isaac, but Zelda. Let's try this thing." So then I think I started watching it before I started playing it. But it was during the Key Sanity tournament, I think, in the winter of 2018, like January, February. That I started, like I followed ALTTB Randomizer and Speed Gaming and really started using Twitch then and started watching Rando.
I feel like you have a different relationship with Rando than a lot of other people that I've had on the show or talked to, in that I don't feel like you race it all that much because I think we can talk about this. You know, your schedule doesn't allow you to race at any time. You have like a certain time that you can play the game. But was that kind of always how it was when you first started and continued, or am I wrong about that?
Yeah, well, I guess when I started, I definitely wasn't racing because it was taking me like 4 hours to beat a seed. I remember I had to split it into like 2 nights. I generated 1 seed and then it took me 2 nights of gaming to play it.
Sure.
But then I start the spring tournament 2019, you know, the big 512 Swiss or whatever. I was in that. I joined that tournament. Sky and I both did. I remember it was a ridiculous number of entrants for this race, right? Or for this tournament.
Yeah.
Even like well over 512. Cause I remember we had to wait for like people to drop out in order to get it, like make the cut to get into the tournament.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, I've joined every like main tourney since then. And even did like learn glitches and joined the Overworld Glitches tourney. I actually started Overworld Glitches 2 weeks before that tourney started, and even had a pretty good run.
So you're racing.
So I did that. I'm not into a lot of like, I did ladder. If you looked at my ladder stats, I did the preseason or whatever. And then the first like 3 or 4 seasons I would join occasionally. But then it just got to where like I play a seed, pretty much 1 seed a night, and I stream it once the kids are in bed. And I used to check if there was a ladder race starting at the time and joined it. And that was for the first few seasons. But then it got to where like, it's kind of a hassle just to stay on top of the schedule, see if there's something interested, and then like have to be there right on time. And I just preferred starting when I want to start, you know, I guess.
Yeah. No, I totally get it. Let's go back to when you first started. You said it was taking you a couple days to finish seeds. How long did it take you to kind of get familiar with it to where you were finishing seeds under 2 hours? And what was your kind of first overall thoughts about playing the game early on? I
mean, early on when I was like, oh, you know, it's a Zelda roguelike, basically, like it blew my mind. Like it was amazing. I still think this game is amazing. Like the amount of stuff that we can do and that can be shuffled, especially like Door Rando and stuff. Just the places they're taking this game is amazing. And it, you know, it kind of has always struck me about that. It took me, I feel like it didn't take that long for me to get down to where I could do it in 3 hours or 2.5 hours, like 2 or 3 weeks or something of playing a seed every, you know, split across 2 nights. And then I was to where I could, you know, give me 3 hours and I can beat an open 7-7. Yeah, I think it really didn't take that long.
Mrs. Spleebie, when he discovers Rando, what were your thoughts of when he first picked it up? Were you enjoying watching him figure these out?
We were doing a Breath of the Wild playthrough because we had gotten a Switch for Christmas. And I just wanted him to come back and finish playing Breath of the Wild. He used to play Breath of the Wild every night, and then he started doing Rando, and I'm like, but I want you to finish. I want to see Ganon die.
Yeah.
He did go back and finish.
Yeah.
Eventually.
But I teased him because he was slow.
That's great. These seeds that you're playing for the first 2 weeks and then start getting familiar. Are you playing with your brother at all? Are you guys figuring it out together? And then when did you first decide to join a race? And was it a tournament or was it pickup races?
It was definitely pickup races. As far as with my brother Sky, we weren't like doing co-op or anything early in the day. Like I think we both were playing it and kind of comparing notes or whatever. not the same seed or whatever, but like, oh, I played a seed and blah, blah, blah happened. Oh, that's cool. I did a seed and something else happened, kind of like that.
Right.
But yeah, eventually it was like, well, hey, let's try a race. I think I'd have to look at my Speedruns Live account. I actually did when you first asked me to be on the podcast last year. I went and dug through my old Speedruns Live, and I should have taken some notes or whatever. You were one of the first people I raced, actually.
Oh, wow.
He started following you before he followed Andy. You're more important than Andy.
Wow,
Did you
awesome.
know that?
Yeah, that's true.
That's crazy. I mean, we started around the same time, so it makes sense when when you find peers that are learning the game. It's usually kind of your group of people that you're familiar with. So were you streaming before this? Did you like that Breath of the Wild playthrough? Were you in any streaming, or was racing your introduction to actually streaming yourself?
Yeah, racing Link to the Past Rando was how I got into streaming. I was like, well, I'll download OBS and put the game on there, I guess, to do a race. And then I got to where I don't really remember how I got to play streaming all the time, because it was just for races at first. I know I did a Wind Waker rando and streamed that, and I've done a few of them and they take forever. But I did that, and I had somebody raid me, and they became like one of my good streamer friends. They don't play rando. They did a casual playthrough of Link to the Past years ago, and it was a thing. But I guess it was after that I really started watching Twitch a lot, and started streaming this game even when I wasn't racing.
Right. I don't know. Maybe I noticed it more because you stream pretty consistently. It felt like you were doing more async stuff, or just doing stuff that you wanted to do, as opposed to this is what the community is doing. Everyone's doing League, or everyone's doing the main tournament, or now there's 1 million tournaments, so we got to join that. And it felt like you were kind of always doing your own thing, which ended up kind of getting, I feel like you're one of the better known glitched runners as well.
Yeah. Sorry, it's hard to remember. I don't know. I can remember all of this stuff that we talked about from when I was a little kid better than I can remember how I got into this game 3 years ago.
It was 5 years ago.
5 years, whatever.
We've played so much of it, though, right? That's the hard part, is it all kind of blends together. So you enter tournaments. You enter the main tournaments. How do you do in the main tournaments?
So this, I actually sat down tonight and pulled this up. I did not do super well in the main tournament, it turns out. I got into the Overworld Glitches one. I made the bracket stage there, lost. I had a bye in the first round, and then lost to Chex Human in round 2. And then in the main, the 2019 main tourney, I didn't make it out of groups. I lost to Asder and then to Lunchtime ATH. 1 and 2 on both of those, at least. And then let's see, there was the co-op tourney in 2020 where Sky and I lost to Gamma and Fear.
Yeah,
knocked us out of that tourney. That we did make it to brackets there. I think everyone might have.
Yeah.
No, there were teams that didn't.
That was a fun tournament. I really enjoyed that tournament, the co-op AD tournament.
And then there's SG Live 2020. That's when I got a webcam and started doing the webcam streams or whatever. I was like, oh, well, if they're going to require it for SG Live, I'll just use it all the time. And maybe people want to watch me play games or whatever. Sure. That one, I almost made brackets. I got in a 3-way tie between DT, Dr. Marty, Zero, and me. And I lost the tiebreaker race.
Oh, boy.
So I didn't. And then in 2021, I didn't actually get into the bracket stage of a main tourney race until this year.
And then he was top 32.
That's awesome.
I mean, top 32 was the entire bracket. No, that wasn't.
Isn't it top 64? Yeah. Top 64 is the bracket, right? So you won your first round?
No. Sorry, just looking at it here. No, it was the first bracket round that I lost. So it was only 64.
Oh, okay. Okay. So what's your relationship with racing then? Because Because again, it feels like you've done the main tournaments, but you never joined the league. And you did like the glitches tournament, which are smaller tournaments compared to everything else. But I don't feel like I see you in all the other tournaments, or I don't see you in a lot of races. I feel like, again, your lane in this game is doing what you enjoy as opposed to fitting your schedule into racing. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I never really thought about it like that, but it's definitely true. I mean, I'm joining the big tournaments, but I'm not trying to get into all the side tournaments. I don't really enjoy entrance shuffle, so
I mean, do you enjoy the racing
a lot of those tournaments I haven't joined. I think it's fun to race, and like see where I stack up. I don't really have, I guess, that much of a competitive drive when it comes to this game, at least. Or really when it comes to most board games. I'm really competitive at board games.
That would be why I refuse to play board games with him.
I've joined all of the main tourneys or whatever, and I enjoy like racing and seeing how I stack up. And I guess there was the qualifiers for the last, was it the last main? It was either the last main tourney or the one before it. I actually won a qualifier, and that was like the coolest thing. That I'll probably never be able to repeat. But
that is awesome.
That's not what like drives me to play this game. Like I'm not really getting like I don't really have that competitive side when it comes to randomizer or to video games, I guess. That like I need to get that thrill. Like I need to win. That's not really what drives me. I just like playing the game and having fun. And, it's fun to see how I stack up. I do a lot of you mentioned earlier, I'm doing a lot of like the glitched asyncs. And I did like, Mike and Beard did this like 12 days of Randomizer. That was great because I love Randomizer. And I enjoy playing these and seeing like how I stack up, but it's not like beating other people at this game isn't really what I'm playing it for.
I am so envious of you because I feel like that's honestly ruined the game for me. Is I've taken some time away and I've been thinking about what it is that I enjoyed about playing the game, and the competitive nature of what we do with Rando, where it's mostly racing. I feel like it's just kind of ruined it for me. Where it's like I can't just sit down and enjoy what should be a fun game, which is a randomized version of Link to the Past. Instead, it's so competitive driven for me, and I it's just sort of ingrained into the community as well that it's kind of ruined it for me a bit. So I'm super envious of the idea that you can play it for fun and race and just let the race be what it is.
Well, thanks, I guess.
I just wish I could enjoy it the way that you enjoy it. It's not really a question. Yeah. No. So how did you get into the glitch side?
It was actually the starting boots. Before we had boot start modes, we had overworld glitches. And in overworld glitches, you get the boots right at the beginning. And they set up a tourney in, what was it, 2019? They said, hey, we're going to do an overworld glitches tourney. I was like, well, that's kind of interesting, but you get to start with boots. So let's figure this out. 2 weeks before the tourney, I started learning overworld glitches, and
that's fast.
Yeah, really, it was the boot start that brought me to it. And now we have all these like casual boots and, pseudo boots and whatever. So we don't need that, but that got me into glitches, and playing this game with glitches is a lot of fun. So I kept doing it.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. As far as like your community, I feel like you've built a community through streaming, again, because I think your consistency helps. And also the fact that you are, I don't want to say you're just a glitched runner, but you're one of the bigger names when it comes to the glitch running. I feel like you found a community pretty quickly here in Rando. Is that true? And can you speak on that community?
Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of the glitch runners like watch each other or whatever. And I've made friends, I guess we would call them friends with, I've never met any of them face to face, and so that always feels weird. But
they're still your friends. I mean, you know them, you talk to them,
exactly.
You trust them.
And so there's a lot of like camaraderie, I guess, and always hanging out in each other's streams. That came from that. There's also a little bit of like the NMG side of things that I hang out in a bunch of NMG streamer channels, and in turn, they show up in my channel. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. So when did you first try NMG?
Oh, I should have looked that up before I mentioned NMG.
He had a seed redemption option, and I redeemed it to make him play just a vanilla one. And then one of our viewers, he hated it so much, one of our viewers decided to use all of his points to redeem like 7 of them.
Oh, Fumetsu, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
and so
awesome.
then once he got into doing a whole bunch of them in a row, he's like, well, this isn't bad.
Yeah, so I had to do like 4 or 5 NMG runs from that. And then I was like, well, those weren't terrible. And sub 90 is like the cool thing to get, right? So I was like, well, let's like try and do a sub 90. And so then I started this thing that I call NMG Thursday, where every Thursday night instead of rando, I'm doing an NMG run. And it's usually like every night. I don't do these long streams. I will play one rando seed and then raid somebody, and that's it. On Thursdays, I do an NMG run instead, and was able to bring my time. I passed the sub 90, and now I have a 126.40 something. I don't remember.
That's awesome. That's a really good number.
And it's really like, I'm not sitting down cranking out a bunch of runs. I'm doing one every Thursday, maybe a couple, here and there. But yeah, it's been a long journey, I guess. I think I've been doing NMG Thursday for a couple of years now.
That's awesome. That's super awesome. Mrs. Spleebie, what's your opinion on rando from your perspective, and what Spleebie does as far as either racing it or asyncing it or just doing what he enjoys?
I think NMG is boring. I was definitely more enthusiastic about rando a couple of years ago than I am today. I like watching it. I like watching him play. But it's kind of repetitive now. But I enjoy better when he does glitches, because I'm very impatient. And if you're doing a regular open seed and you see, like, I don't know, the flute on bumper ledge, in glitches, you can just clip right to it and get it right away. But in open regular, you can't. You have to sit there and be patient and wait until you find the cave. And I don't like that. I just want it now.
Yeah.
And I love Randomizer. So anytime he asks me what he should play, I say Overworld Glitches Randomizer.
So it's funny because when I started doing glitches, you didn't like it.
Oh yeah, much. No, because I don't like change.
Because she had a harder time like understanding what we can get, like, and like what my items can get me to or whatever. So she had a harder time following it, but now she likes it more.
Now that I know the logic and how things work.
Sure.
Well, that's another thing that I was going to mention about the whole racing scene and whatever, is because Mrs. Spleebie has been watching me play for so long. Like, she knows a ton about this game, and she knows when I do something wrong, or like when I'm missing arrows and I'm heading to Ganon, and so, it's when we're racing, she kind of has to like step away and not really pay that much attention, because she knows she can't remind me of anything.
Right.
And so that's kind of another thing that has kept me from like really hardcore going into the racing scene and doing ladder and stuff, because I enjoy like being able to have her around, and
I can't talk during races.
Yeah.
That's
so fun.
Yeah.
So you mentioned like the thing that Homemade Beer and Mike were doing, and the fact that both of you enjoy Randomizer so much. Have you enjoyed where the game has progressed in the last few years, where with the advent of door rando and everything that's been opening up with the custom YAMLs and whatnot, that things are just kind of open wide as far as what the game can do now?
I mean, I've enjoyed a lot of it. I'm not really a fan of entrance shuffle. Door Rando I find interesting, but it's a lot more difficult. And I think Mrs. Spleebie finds it boring because there's a lot of like either trying to map things out or a lot of wandering around and not, it's less action. I don't know. She's the football fan of the two of us. So she likes the action. She likes the stuff like happening and not the wandering around being lost that often happens with these.
Sure.
But it's amazing to see, all this stuff that's coming out and all these new modes and whatever.
The YAMLs are nice because that's what you use on your multi-Monday.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So to go with NMG Thursday, because that sounds so good. Multi-Monday actually sounds a little better. My little brother and I, we do just a 2-person multi-world almost every Monday. And we do a mystery like with the YAMLs and stuff on the Door Rando client. And
okay.
So we get a little bit of variety in there all the time. And, it's a good time.
So are you, we're 5 years in, are you still enjoying Rando the same as you were back then? More? Where are you at with Rando today?
I mean, at least the same or more, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. I look forward to, like, I play a lot of other PC games, like I want to say in my off hours. I look forward to like firing up the stream and running a Rando seed.
But you're not limited to Rando, right? Like you don't have to just stream Rando. Like tonight you were streaming Hollow Knight, right?
Oh,
like
yeah.
You don't limit yourself to just playing Rando. Like you are able to enjoy other games as well.
Yeah. I don't stream a lot of the other games though. Like probably 95% of what I have streamed has been Rando or speedrunning, like Link to the Past, I've also streamed like Zelda 1 and 2 and some Wind Waker, Ocarina of Time.
Valhalla.
Oh, we did a Assassin's Creed Valhalla stream playthrough. That was fun.
Can I expect a Tears of the Kingdom stream coming up?
I don't know about streaming. We're definitely going to play it. But I think that it's probably going to be offline.
I see.
It's like,
I see.
If we did it like to play it on stream, we'd have to wait. Like we'd play it for 2 or 3 hours a night and then have to wait until the next time we can fire it up to continue from there, And it's like, this game's going to come out and we're both just going to want to play it until it's done. Neglect the kids and
for sure
our life.
Yeah, our kids are going to go stay with Grandpa for the weekend, so we don't have to even feed them.
That's awesome. I'm taking vacation to play Tears of the Kingdom. I'm ready.
Nice.
I'm ready for it.
Yeah, so I guess don't be expecting streams of that, but
at least not right away. Once he's played it once, and he won't spend hours trying to figure out a single puzzle.
Yeah, I mean, if there's like a master mode or something, I might do like a playthrough of that on stream.
Well, let me ask you, because since we're talking about Tears of the Kingdom, expectations, because it sounds like you both love Breath of the Wild. What are expectations?
I hope there's more dungeons. I mean, it's pretty common feeling, but like the open world stuff is cool, but I hope we have more dungeons with puzzles in them and not just open world. I don't know. What do you think?
I just hope that it's not all in the air.
Yeah.
Like it's cool that there are parts that are in the air, but if the whole game is in the air, like Skyward Sword, well, even Skyward Sword wasn't all in the air. I think that I would get bored because there's only so many different platforms you can fly to.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be all in the air. I don't think you have to worry about that one. I do hope for the more classic dungeon layouts than what the Divine Beasts gave us in Breath of the Wild. I think that would be a cool addition. I really do hope they fix some of like the weapon stuff. Because with how quickly everything broke, I think that was a big frustration. But it looks like there's going to be some really cool, neat new stuff based off the trailers.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, we've got it pre-ordered.
Awesome. Yeah,
I
can't wait.
I did manage to snag a collector's edition pre-order.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, that's going to be cool. Is there anything else Rando related that I'm in your notes that we missed?
I mean, I mostly made notes so I could talk about the tourneys and stuff.
Yeah. So there's a tournament coming up, I think at the end of March, another main tournament. You planning on joining the qualifiers for that, or where you at going forward?
Yeah, I'll be doing quals, and we'll see if I can get past, round of 64 in the brackets this year. But
and then for Miss Spleebie, expectations for the Vikings in 2023?
They are not high. I was kind of amazed with their run this year, but
we didn't mention she lived in Minnesota,
and I met Spleebie at college when I went out of state for college.
Oh, okay, so
that's why the Vikings is her team, because it's the home team.
I just assumed you guys lived in Minnesota then, but I take that you do not live in Minnesota.
No, we don't.
Okay, yeah, I think as long as Kirk Cousins there, you guys will continue to be mediocre. So
yep, I agree.
I really appreciate you guys coming on the show. It was really fun chatting with you, and I hope you're able to get past your nerves.
Yeah, no, it's been great. Thanks for having us.
Are we going to talk about Tilt?
Oh my gosh. Okay, thank you for reminding me.
Yeah, no, I forgot.
All right, so last question before we go. Tilt. It's a question I ask everyone. I would never forget to ask it, so I'm going to ask it to you. How do you handle tilt? Which it feels like, I mean, I can't imagine you getting tilted. I don't know if I've seen you get tilted. Yeah, I think I've heard Mrs. Spleebie more tilted than you. So what's your approach to tilt, and how do you handle it? And then how do you, same question to Mrs. Spleebie.
Yeah. I don't really get tilted. I mean, I don't know. I think I have moments in the game where like I'm doing badly or my execution is poor, and I'll get a little bit tilted from that. And like sometimes it'll be like, I know that it's going badly, and it just gets worse and worse from there. And so I do deal with a little bit of that. I don't really get the like, oh, I lost this race, and I don't get tilted from that. I'm just like, well, I lost. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, that's cool. And I know that other than just saying, don't be competitive, I don't know that that's really any kind of advice.
Right.
Like
just be like me.
Yeah. Just don't be like yourself. Yeah. That's how is that going to help?
Sure.
But I mean, there is a little bit of like, I'm not super we talked about this. I'm not super involved in the racing scene. I don't join ladder races that much. I kind of play the game to be fun, and I play it how I liked. I try all these different modes, and I do glitches, and racing doesn't have to be part of the game for me. So maybe if that could be a way to handle tilt, is you could step back and try playing it for yourself instead of for the race.
Yeah, for sure.
I always tell him that I still love him. He knows that even if he loses the race, his wife still loves him. That's
important. It allows you to not get tilted. Well, again, thank you so much for being on the show. I can't thank you enough for kicking this off and for coming on. Yeah, no, it's been a great time. I've been looking forward to it since you reached out.
We love the podcast.
And excited to see some new episodes coming out. Big thanks to Spleebie and Mrs. Spleebie for coming on the show and kicking off season number 4. Had a ton of fun. Again, shout outs to them for being as patient as they were with me and all the tech issues that we had. I even forgot to do the tilt question. That's how off sorts I was. So again, thank you, Mrs. Spleebie, for reminding me. I appreciate everyone for listening to the show. Downloads have continued slowly the last couple of months, despite there not being any new episodes. So people are still discovering the show. That's pretty neat. Really appreciate everyone that listens. Next week, we'll have Timp from the Go Mode podcast on the show. That was a lot of fun. And back for season 4. Glad to be back. See you next week.